morning. I'm going to be teaching this class, obviously, that's why I'm talking. So we'll get straight into it. Which is comedy stitch. So we'll get straight into it and show you some guard passing. So if you want to get in nice and close. Who's sitting up? That's okay. So we're going to start off with our partner in seated guard. So they're going to be sitting up here trying to make grips. So we're going to assume that we're starting to disengage from our partner. Obviously in a tournament, they'll probably pull to a specific position. But if I can pop away grips and get a distance first, then I can sort of decide where I'm going from here then. Okay, so we're going to start with Ffion in front of me here. He's been reaching for some grips, right? He's just seated in this position, and there should be a little bit of space here. In general, depending on what I'm trying to do, I'll try and stay on the outside and take double pants when I'm here. But because I want to show a lot of pressure passing, and again, like kind of like what Pedro was saying, I'm not going to be showing anything that's new or exciting. I'm really well, hopefully, hopefully you like it. But I'm not going to be showing anything crazy. I don't really have the most interesting jiu-jitsu. That's not really a good sell. But I hope that you can take some good sort of like ideas from it that I'm showing. But in general, if I want to put my weight on my partner and I'm struggling to get 2 pants grips, especially if they're reaching down and they're blocking their feet here, it's quite difficult to get into that space, right? So when they're leaning forward and making their legs really heavy and I can't reach down to pull him back onto his back, that's when I'll opt to step in the center, but it comes with its risks. If I step into here, I am essentially stepping into a good position for him because he can close his space on the leg, and now it would be fairly difficult for me to now make space for me to start to get into a good position. So when I decide to step in, because sometimes it's worth the risk, because I like to get to like a headquarters type position, I will still step in here, but with the knowledge that there is a risk in this position. So if he's able to close that space. So if I'm not able to dig in here, which is more often than not, what I'll let him do is wrap around my leg with his lead hand here, and I'm going to drive my knee to the far side. So if I try and instantly go for a knee cut, for example, here, I'm going to end up in a position where he has the inside control. So I'm going to aim my knee across to get into headquarters. So we're here, he's got an open space here. I'm going to step into the center, drive my knee through to the far side. I'm just making sure that I'm straddling over this top leg. When I come to this position, rather than going really square here, where he can start to elevate me with the center leg, and then I'm too far up, I'm going to aim my weight across this position from almost at like a diagonal here. This means I can load this leg up with a lot of weight, and I'm going to counter post here on the collar, pushing through his chest. Sometimes I can even get my hand to the mat here. This will be really helpful in terms of pulling his shoulder with me if I come to the far side. But this leg in the center is basically what's going to decide which pass we go for, right? So if his knee starts to close across my hip, I'll always go for a smash pass. But if he keeps his knee really wide across the other side of my belly button, I'll always go for a knee cut to the far side. So rather than when I land here and his knee is closed, rather than going to force a knee cut across where it's just me coming against his leg, and his legs are going to be fairly strong, maybe not your legs, but okay, yes. I'm trying to go. If I'm trying to go against the weight of his leg, it's far too difficult, when a much more easier and obvious pass would be to use the fact that his knees are closed, go for a smash on this side. Does that make sense? So we're going to start off with our partner seated here. I'm look to step to the center, and as I step to the center, I'm also making a little bit of space here as well, just so he's not fully wrapped onto my leg. So I'm going to post here on the shoulder, step in the middle. Sometimes people will put a hook in front of you here, like a butterfly hook. If I can, I'll try and step on the inside. I don't know if you can see that. So if I'm here, if I can, I'll post and then heel flick in the inside and then drive flat straight away. But sometimes if I'm not able to get that off, I'll still drive forward even with the hook in, and then later I can kick it off and bring it back to the inside of his hamstring here. Okay, so with our partner, I'm going to post on the shoulder here. I'm assuming I can't get a hold of the feet to start to elevate him. So I post, step, and I drive really heavy to the far side here, almost to the knees at the mat. Once I'm here, we'll just get our partners to try and elevate us a little bit. I can practice just posting and then bringing my weight back. When I'm in this position as well, I'm keeping my feet sort of out here behind me, like a little heel flick, rather than sort of sitting back here where there's a lot of space for me to put the hook in. So I'm really leaning forward here, almost like a yoga, like pro pose. I'm really so I'm going to post through the shoulder here this hand, if he is lifting me here, I can just post and bring my weight back. So every time I start to lift me in this position, post, then come back onto my heels. So I can lean in through, and then we'll look at some passes side to side from here. Okay? Or we'll get back. All right. 1, 2, 3.
Va?
Maybe not your legs.
Ja, ja. Fan, jättetaggad. Det ska bli jättekul här.
I would step just literally either walk around or cut from the center. I would go forward in case I do extend. I would literally go through. Now we've stepped to the middle. We brought our partner down flat. Here. But now let's look at which direction we're going. And like I sort of touched on earlier, we're in this position. The knee positioning of my partner here is going to decide which direction I go. So if it's in the center, I can kind of move it side to side because it's not fully committed to either direction. But if someone is really flaring their knee down across my body here in a knee shield, it's very unrealistic for me to start to drag my leg across for that knee cut now, okay? So once I'm in this position, I'm going to look to tuck it under his knee here, right? So I'm going to go for the smash pass on this far side. If they brought this out, usually they're starting to frame on my chest here. So we're going to look at trying to get the legs to stay together, okay? So once I'm in this position, my hand, I like to place it down on the mat. Some people like to anchor onto their partner here as well. I think it's size dependent. If your partner is significantly bigger than you, maybe it's quite difficult for you to reach the mat from here, especially if they're starting to elevate you a bit. But you can also post as well. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to bring my knee underneath his leg and start to mirror the position. So in general, when I'm passing, a few things I like to think about is if I want to put a lot of pressure onto my partner, I need to keep my hips square to him. So what I mean by that is rather than being in a twisted position like I am right now, it's quite difficult to put a lot of weight through. I know a lot of people like this style of passing where they twist and they go for this sort of smash variation. But personally, I've been, believe it or not, flicked off with my partner from here. Even with the legs fairly low, they can still sort of open this like a door and start to elevate me to this far side, even when it's quite deep in the smash. So in this case, I'll only momentarily twist my hips before I start to bring my hips to face my partner square again. Another thing I think about is if I go in this direction, my partner's frames are going to come into play. So when we're just drilling, our partners aren't posting very heavy. They're usually keeping their arms tight to their body. But when we're rolling, he's going to be framing me really heavy here. So when I try and close this space, it's very difficult. So what I like to do is I like to turn my chest to face this top shoulder, which is the direction he's always turning towards. Right? He's not able to turtle away from me when I'm starting to go in this direction. He's always going to start to turn up towards me. So with that in mind, when I come here and I tuck through, when I start to bring my knee down nice and low, I'm going to flip my hip to face him here. Like so. So now when he brings his frames in, yeah, if you bring this one in front of my face, yeah, here, right? He has to literally bench press me off, which some people will be able to bench press you off. I've been bench pressed many times, but it's a lot more tiring and they feel some shame afterwards. Okay, so rather than starting on extended frames, so if I'm here and I've twisted my body and he's able to frame against me now, he didn't need to press from his chest. He was able to do it without using much energy. Whereas if I'm here and he starts to frame and I start to shorten his frame straight away, now he has to press from here. So if you imagine doing a bench press and starting from here and then moving that way versus just holding with extended arms, it's much more difficult. So that's what I'm trying to do, is make it a little bit heavier for my partner, but me having to squeeze him. So we're here, this position. Again, if they have this hook in, I can still lean through, kick off that post, and now I start to flare this across my belly. Okay, if it's just a little bit more central, this is when I can use this little twist to help nudge it across, and I bring my belly to the opposite side of this knee here, so I'm on the outside. Once I'm in this position, I'll bring my knee down to the mat, but as soon as I do this, if I leave my weight off too much, you might be able to flare, bring this leg into this space. So I keep my toes tucked behind his hamstring, and as soon as I start to fold this leg down, I turn to the far side. I bring my knee up nice and close to his head here, so I'm fully side on to my partner. Now the problem is going to be getting into this space for mount, because he's going to start to close this space, especially people who are smaller and more flexible. They're going to start to really ball up here, potentially start to lift their hips and start to invert on you. So once I'm in this position, what I'm thinking about mostly is getting my chest lower than a thief's shoulder, right? So he's going to be trying to ball up here and bring this low. And now, if I'm in this position, and you see a lot of people like rag people's faces here, I'm not going to be able to move someone's head with just this grip usually. Some people might be able to, but I really struggle with this. So I rather get my chest nice and low, and now I can really flatten my partner out. So rather than just using the direct shoulder pressure into his chin, which is more painful, really, I like to get my chest nice and low, and then I can really bring his shoulders flat to the mat here. Okay? So when I do this, I try not to concentrate, if you like frame these here, I try not to concentrate all my weight up high if my partner's flexible. If they're not so flexible, they're more heavy framers, they're a little bit more stiff, what about a word, right? You can definitely commit the weight up to this top corner. But if my partner's very flexible and good at inversions, this is where I'll focus this hand up high, but I'll keep this other hand nice and low on their hip. So now if he tries to lift his hips up, he can't. And from this position, we can kind of cook them a little bit. We can keep them here where it's uncomfortable. And then I can start to work my knee in nice and tight, step over, and then we have a nice high mount position to finish. So once we're in here, I'm in this position. I'm going to post on my hands, because if there's too much weight in my legs, it's quite difficult to move side to side. So I'm going to post through, so my feet are nice and light. Tuck through that gap, and then I can start to drag my knee to the mat and take a big step over nice and high to his head. So my knees are nice and tight to the hip and right beside his head here. So I've technically closed this space up a little bit, but it's worth it to prevent that heavy framing through the upper body. And now I can start to look for a big cross face. So when I reach here, I bring my hand flat to his back. So rather than going here, I'm driving my shoulder, and especially if someone's a lot bigger, this may not be realistic to a lot of you, but if someone's a lot bigger than me, sometimes they can even start to lift me here. So I try not to commit too much to like that grip. So I'll reach through, bring the palm of my hand nice and flat to the center of his back, and I get my chest below the shoulder, and I can bring him down flat here. If your partner's bendy, again, you can grip the hip here to prevent him from starting to invert. And if they're very flexible, you can also do like a little hamstring curl here as well. So I'm in this position, and they're keeping this knee too tight. If I've moved the head a few times, and I'm still having difficulty, I'll then start to lift my heel and do a little counter torque on his knee here. So my goal isn't to hurt their knee or devalve them or anything. It's just to encourage them to let me pull the knee away from the body. From here, I pull through, bring my knee in nice and tight on the far side. If they're framing heavy here, which most people will be, this will actually make it much easier to extend up nice and high. So when I'm here, knee starts to frame, I follow it, and then I bring my head to the far side. And I'm just going to finish with a nice high mount when my feet are to the hips. And I've got this arm above his head as well. Okay, do you see one more time? So we're here, we get to our position. Our partners just going to make sure they flare their knee to the opposite side. I anchor on, and now I'm going to post through my hand here. When I post through, I can make my feet nice and light so it's easier. Tuck, and then I bring my knee down, and just make sure that your body is on this side of the leg, and the weight is aiming towards the end of the knee. It's much easier to smash from here. Once I'm here, I can set this foot out, bring my knee up nice and high beside the head, and now our partner's going to have their hands, like he's got here, framing in front of the face. Like so. So I'm just going to make sure that my chest is below his shoulder. A lot of people will be turning this down really heavy. Okay, so maybe you can get your hand in first, open, and then adjust your chest below. Reach through nice and deep, and then drag my partner down flat. And now from here, you can torque the head away from this position. You do a little hip lift here, just about a torque on the knee to drag away. Knee comes in tight. And now in this position, when they frame hard, you follow it to bring your head to the far side. Alright, are we all good enough? Let's give it a go. If you have any questions, just pull me over or stare at me. Okay, 1, 2, and come back in. Now I can close it, but it has to be quite quick. If I do it slowly, you can just adjust your grip to the other shoulder. So I want to like shimmy, then come in.
Yeah.
So always aiming to bring my body back facing square.
Yeah.
But I can deflect for a moment just to move his frames off. Because if I'm an uneven surface for him,
Yeah.
it's much easier for me to
get past.
yeah, because your hands will start to, it's hard to keep posted. I kind of doing this like a cat. So trying a little like shimmy, like, and then
Felix, can I try?
so press off and I'll pull back in.
Something like that.
Right in the beginning or when I'm already in my pass? Okay, so now I'm going.
You can either keep the collar, so in the beginning you got that collar, you're posting through it, and then the Pedro said about doing a counter post. Yeah. So say if you're trying to pull the collar, no, if you are, sorry. Yeah, so here you're going to pull your collar, you can counter post with that stiff arm. Yeah, right? But sometimes you can also post it on the mat. It really depends on what feels good for you and what techniques you like to link. I like to always be able to pop away, but I like to take the collar grip.
Okay, so after this, I can go further.
Now you can grasp, you need to be over this smash the hook.
Yeah.
He is just pulling his knee like this. When I go like this, it's a little uncomfortable. I pull it away, open the space. I can also rag the head, like open the head out a little bit. And then I can let it go and then step up. Just to make a bit of and then like probably.
People just say like just push through it, you know, and like try to get low. But I feel like you get choked.
Yeah. So
Like how do you?
specifically the punch.
Yes.
I have it. Well, I like to shimmy off, depending.
Like this.
Like this, and then throw it back in. But I guess it depends on that grip. I don't know. If I'm here and they're going here, I'll try and. Sorry.
No, it's okay.
I'll use my shoulder to shimmy it off. So I'll go like to close my sleeve. So I'll go here, and then bring myself back in. As long as I go back to being
Yeah.
close the distance again. Then frame.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'll like shimmy back. Does it help me a little bit? I'll like frame the shoulder and then.
Yeah. It is like
Scares them.
it's annoying and distracting, you know.
Yeah, they're like, oh, let's go. Yeah. They're pushing your head as well. You can be a drill. That's crazy.
On the inside position.
Yeah.
Do you just try to pull it off?
Yeah. So if
Do you
they're
leave the head and just try to pull it off?
yeah, it really depends. If they're framing like crazy, they'll usually be like pushing away a little bit, and that'll give me the space to bring this in, and then I can go back to the head here. But now I'll keep my knee really close. So if I keep it back here, you're just gonna retract the elbow and do the same thing again. So I'll go here. Once I peel it up, I step in, and I just make sure that that space is really closed now. You try to pull it back in.
Yeah.
It's way more difficult, and I can really big squish. But if not, you can ask me afterwards as well if I can, if I can help you if you're a bit shy. But if you have a question, someone. Oh, there we go.
You show one more time. Once you switch the hip, what do you do with the right knee? Should move the right knee up with the shoulder. Like
Yes.
after you stand basically on hips, and then how do you place your
So I'm here in this position.
right knee?
I was like, which one's my right? Okay, this leg. In this position, is it?
Yeah.
So I'll keep it behind the ankle or like any sort of region here until this knee can hit the mat. Once I get this knee to the mat, it should be safe because it should be fully smashed at this point. If I feel like the knee is kind of awkward, like this, I usually won't commit through because then this is a bit more vulnerable to be pulled through this gap. So until I fully flatten this leg out here and there's a bit of space, that's when I'll release this and fold over. Just to be super, super careful. Yeah, well, I'll go towards the shoulder, the knee towards here. His frame will usually be in this little space, like he'll be pushing against my hip most of the time. Some people might grab your pants here, like at this point at the knee, is that to shove that, but it's quite weak. You can see there's a weak sort of push here. So it'll be annoying, but I can still cut into the space over his frame. Some people might hook underneath, yeah, like this. But again, all I need to do is fold over his arm, and now when we're in mount, he doesn't have an arm. It's trapped. So Does that help a bit? All right. Anyone else? Yes.
We want to go about flattening him out with, like what you said, like turn up in the wall and very tight frames.
Yeah. So sometimes, kind of as I was saying to you just there, Pedro, when I come through and they're so balled up, I'm kind of guaranteed that they're not going to do anything from this position. Like they're not going to extend their frames. They're not going to risk anything. If it's so much so that I can't like peel open this space at all, at this point, I'll take this arm away. So you can see in this position, his shoulder is below my chest. So I've not won this fight here. And once he has his frames in the front of his head here as well, now it's really difficult to get under. So if this is the case when he's committed here, I'm going to retract this hand. I'm just going to keep the collar, here, just so I have an anchor so I can keep him pulled in as well. And at this point, I can start to bring my foot behind his ankle on this side. So we're here, right? I'm not able to get into this space. It's just frustrating me. If they're this committed to being defensive, all of this side is fully open for attacking, right? His frames, his upper body frames, his legs are all balled up in this direction. So now on this side is the blind side. So I can get behind, kick away, and now he's exposing his back. So I'm just getting to the side where it's much easier to attack him from here. Does that make sense? I need to stop asking that. Sorry, it's like my learning cue. Okay, are we all good with that? Okay, we got a bit of time. So now we're going to look at when the knee is flared to the opposite side. And we're going to look at the knee cut on the opposite side. But we're also going to look when they get the underhook as well. Because when we're going into this sort of tight positioning, we need to be able to fight against that as well. So we're here, same sort of area, but now he's flaring, right? You can feel when his knee comes across, I'm starting to smash. So he starts to post and open to this far side. So I'm going to start to step this leg out nice and wide here. This hand on the collar, you can bring it through underneath as a post here, or you can maintain the upper body if you like. I personally now like to hook under the shoulder because when I come across, I can pull his shoulder towards me here, right? And if this knee comes into this space, when I have this, I can sort of flare my hip open to get into this space again. So I'm almost peeling him in the opposite direction to where I really need him. Usually, I want to flatten my partner out like we just looked at there. But in this case, I'm kind of giving him something that so he's more likely to come forward. So I'm going to peel his shoulder towards me. And if he keeps going in this direction, we can attack that arm. So it's making him feel a little bit vulnerable when I'm pulling this towards him. And if they're able to nudge it into this space, I can open my hip out, post, and then sit my weight back on top of his knee here. So I'm not sitting like a seat like this, but I'm just using my butt to sort of push my weight back in this direction. Now we can start to cut through this space. So I'm just showing a variation that I like. It's not the best or my favorite necessarily. It's what I've been using the most at the moment. There's lots of different variations, but I think it's a little bit different. So when I'm here, he flares open in this direction. So you can keep this. You can go for more of a traditional knee cut if that's your preference. That's totally fine. Or you can drop your hip in nice and heavy. Or you can take a look at this variation. So what I'm going to do is switch this grip now from his collar. I'm going to bring it underneath his armpit here. Sometimes people ask, what if the armpits are really closed? Well, then I'll keep the collar, and he's also not doing anything here if his hands are to his chest. Most people are going to be trying to grip onto your collars here, or like collar sleeve or whatever, right? So I'm going to switch my hand to the mat here, just for now. As this opens up, I'm going to step to the far side and flick my knee all the way to the far side. Sorry, just had to be here. Okay, so I'm going to step, and I pull the knee in nice and tight towards me, like so. Okay, so when I start to close this space, my knee is currently facing in towards my partner, just so that I can block any sort of frame coming in on this side. If I commit too early to a knee cut, he'll always be able to force this knee into this space. And even though I have this now, you can actually overhook my arm and give me a bit of problems here if I'm not careful. So when I switch over here, I'm facing my knee in nice and tight first. And then once I can feel that this is cleared, this is when I can switch through with my hip. Once I'm in this position then, I'm going to reach nice and deep on the head. So I'm here, my elbow's turning inwards, like so, right? Now my backhand can start to reach as long as there's free space. And I can join my hands together and fold to the far side. Probably close in. Whenever I pass, one thing I like to do sort of in my head is not consider it a pass to myself. Obviously, it is a guard pass, but I don't really consider that I fully passed the guard until I've dealt with this frame, because I can't rest if my partner has a frame here. If I get to this position, he's always going to make space here, and it's just quite tiring to deal with. With me, like, connect his knee and his elbow. So in my head, I don't consider myself safe until I've beaten this frame, and there's a few ways you can do it. My favorite way is to use this knee to flank and tight to his hip, to kick, and then stepping really tight in towards his shoulder here. So now his elbow is past my hip, and I can basically rest in this position. Because now when he's bridging, all he's doing is wasting energy and opening up space for me to cross over and progress position. And I can usually just wait here as they bridge. Right, it's really difficult for him to make any movement in any direction other than up. And then eventually, when his feet are planted, he's bridging. This is when I can progress over, right? Because he's opening the space as opposed to closing that space and getting me to elbow. So, we're here. This is flaring. I'm going to post, first of all. And then my other hand's going to go up nice and high. And I whip across. And I'm still facing this top shoulder. Right, so I'm still facing towards this. If I feel like he's able to retract his elbow, or he's like staying really heavy on this side and I can't actually get into this space for whatever reason, oftentimes I'll start to close the shoulder down, knee cut through, and just come to north side, where we have some attacks here as well. So if you feel like your partner's being quite stubborn in this position, all of this space is still open because you have that lock on the shoulder here as well. So like a shoulder crunch, but on top now instead. Do you want to see it one more time? Yes. Well, no, you can't. So we're here. Okay, now it's flared open. I can also bring my armpit over, post, and I'm going to cut across and post this arm up nice and high. So straight away, my knee is blocking that space, preventing this coming through. But if I have this and I'm pulling my elbow in nice and tight, and then you just nudge the knee in slightly, so it's not a full knee shield here, I can still post up high, flare my hip open, and then sit back heavy straight away. So if I stay up here for too long, you might be able to pummel this in. Yeah, here. And sorry. Okay, so I'm going to close that space here. If I let you nudge that back in. So I'm just going to make sure that I go up high, flare, and then sit back here. Always aiming my weight nice and low to the hip. Now, once I'm in this position, it really depends on what my partner does. Some people will keep turning their shoulder down heavy. If that's the case, I'm going to punish him for it, right? If he's trying to close that space, hide in that space, kind of ball up here. I'm going to lock my hands, pull him through heavy here, sort of like do a shin slice out to the side, and then come up to north side. But if he's kind of a bit more normal, here, I close the space. I'm going to bring this arm through, catch the head, then I switch to pitting him now. Cut. And now just to get rid of that frame, I can kick step, go nice and high. And if you're not able to kick step, you can also go on top of the arm and give him a nice forearm massage. Because some people will grip you and try and throw you like this, and then I just drag my shit until they calm down. Okay, are we all good with that? All right, let's go again. 1, 2. Now we're doing the rolling. So we did an hour of technique, and now we're doing rolling. We're doing 2 groups: a heavyweight group and a lightweight group. I think it's about 7-minute rounds. Yeah, so it's the 4th class. So I think everyone's a little bit tired, but it's still good. so much, guys. I was saying it's a great session. I hope you enjoyed. Thank you so much for having me, Nash and Lena, and thank you for attending again. It's nice to see everyone again. And yeah, I'll see you again tomorrow for the guard. Okay. The end. Oh,
Yeah, no.
okay, yeah, okay, this part.
Okay, cheese.
When I saw you do this at Worlds, I did it on the podium.